so to fold the corner, pull the linen round quite tightly around there, fold this triangle down, hold it in place with a staple, and then that comes back up, and then the corner comes up like that, ready to be done. So when it's finished, the surface should be smooth, not too tight because it will tension when it's primed, but smooth, with no wrinkles or ripples, and an even weave. On the back, see that there are not too many staples in it. The more staples you put in, the more holes you're putting through it, and the more chance there are of weakening the threads. So usually, you know, about my hand I like to try and get in between them. The corners are folded so that the folds are inside slightly, so that when the stretcher is on the wall you won't see any of the folded canvas protruding out the side. The sides are all smooth, the surface is smooth, and it's now there, ready, done, and ready to be primed. When it comes to priming, obviously there are a variety of different primers. It depends on the kind of work you're going to be doing. There are oil primers, there are acrylic primers, universal primers. With unprimed linen, before applying any kind of primer, it's always a good idea to put a coat of sealer on it first. This will seal the canvas and just prevent whatever primer or work you put on coming through the back, which will then just start to rot the threads. That's not always necessary with cotton. Cotton is a much tighter, denser weave. People do work directly onto it. It is still a better idea, just for the protection of the canvas, just to seal it first, just to make sure that nothing's going to get into the threads and deteriorate the canvas later on. The priming technique itself, when you've chosen whatever primer or size you are going to apply, when brush priming the first coat onto the surface, it's very important to make sure that it all is consistently applied and consistently worked into the weave of the canvas. Any patches or little pinprick holes you can see will mean that the primer itself is not actually in the linen, it's just sitting on top of it. So the important thing to do is, with the brush, really work it in, just methodically go over the whole canvas, evenly and consistently, working ideally with circular motions, just to get the primer worked all the way into the thread. When that's done, it can be lightly sanded if necessary. One good coat of primer should do. Many people apply 2 or 3 or as many as they feel they need to. Once the linen itself has been sealed or sized, then that one coat of primer, and it should be fine, properly primed and ready to work on after that. The preparation of the surface is the key thing. Depending on what type of work you're going to be doing, you may need to sand it and apply further coats. But that is the key thing. And then once all of that is done, all of those stages, each one done properly at every different stage, then you should have a perfectly usable stretch canvas, which will remain square, it will not twist, it will not warp, and it will be ready to work on, and it will support the work that you choose to put on it for years to come. When storing them, obviously, it is a wooden stretcher. Linen is, of course, these are all sort of natural materials, and they are going to be susceptible to change in conditions, change in temperature, moisture. Many studio complexes are cold buildings that have high ceilings and old brick work and old windows, and in the summer they're hot and in the winter they're freezing cold. Moisture is the key to these things sort of warping and changing. A wooden stretcher, if assembled and left in a cold, damp studio over a winter, it is going to warp. There's very little you can do about it. The key thing is to try, wherever possible, just to keep them at a consistent temperature. Generally speaking, with linen, the temperature you stretch it at, it should, if it's kept in that temperature, it should remain and keep its tension. Obviously, when priming, it will become very tight and then possibly slacken off a lot more when it's dried, and it may ultimately, before it is finally ready for you to work on after applying varying coats of primer, need to have some restretching or retensioning, perhaps by tapping out the wedges that are in the stretcher. But the conditions are important, so it is best not to assemble stretchers if you're not going to be working on them for a while. Keep them tightly packed together, keep them off the floor, and don't leave them assembled sort of lying around at any kind of angle at all, otherwise the weight of them and the temperature and the conditions will get to them, and they are going to sag, because wood ultimately is a natural product. But if all those things are taken into consideration, a wooden stretcher is as good a surface as any.